let's look at some examples of computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing being used together. And we're going to take these from the National Geographic Mega Factories documentaries that we watched. There's links on our Kingsnet page for you to go to those, but if you haven't, just go and Google it in YouTube and just type in Lego factories or mega factories. So if we watch that documentary, you can see a bunch of guys sitting around playing with Lego, although that is very manual, but they're doing that to get new product ideas. And one of the ideas they get is to make a police dog. So to do that, they actually bring in a real dog and a sketch artist there. You can see them working together. And then she sits down and thinks about, well, how would we turn this, in this case a German Shepherd, into a bit of Lego? She sat down and molded a figurine in clay. And again, this is still all very manual, so this is not computer-aided design. But if we keep watching, we'll see that once she's got the basic shape, well, now we've got to turn it into something we can manufacture in Lego in hundreds of millions of quantities. So what does she do? She sits down and she gives it to a designer who designs a 3D model using CAD, computer-aided design. So you can see it there. We're going to specify the dimensions, etc. Not only that though, but then the designer also needs to think, when you make a bit of Lego, you're not just making the bit there, it's actually made in a block. So the designer had to sort of model a little block that was going to minimize the amount of plastic that you waste, because every time you cut out this little dog shape, you're wasting the rest of it. So we also use computer-aided design for that. What then happened is they turned the finished design into program instructions for a machine. You can see the machine here. So a human would operate that, so we do have some human involvement here. And they're just feeding those dimensions for the dog into this machine to make that little part. Another example is our Tesla Mega Factories documentary. So that is done obviously with a 3D design model. And the reason why it is and if you watch a documentary, they say they actually start from the bottom up. And the reason they do that is space. When you don't have an internal combustion engine, there's so many parts you don't need in a car. So you get to save a lot of space. So they design it so on the computer so you can increase this space. So that in the documentary is actually the boot. You can fit 2 extra seats in the boot there because you don't have, all those extra little parts and stuff underneath the car. There's more space. They then turned each part into sort of, like a little exact measurements of design, saying this is how long it should be, this is when you do it, and so on. But you can see a finger there. A human's not going to do any of these tasks. We're just specifying the exact dimensions. And then these dimensions will be turned into code. You can see there's 2 engineers here using computers here to turn that, how to make each particular part into a series of instructions. And they kind of test it out with the robot as they're doing it. And they're just trying to get those exact measurements and computer code right. And you also see they use the 3D model for it. So they generate, well, the computer doesn't just go up and down like on a screen, it sort of moves around within the 3-dimensional field. So they create a grid and turn that grid into exact movements. Then finally, they're going to write their code, so you can see a bit of it here. And then that will be fed into the machine. And what we see, I don't know what the part is, but that's a laser cutter. The cutter, it's cutting out some part and it's doing it based on exact measurements that have been fed into it from CAD, a designer specified move this way, cut here, turn left, cut here, etc.